ಫೂಲಿದು තිය බේෆුළුන්නක් තමුදා රශ ගද පහකක් ගෙන්දුමටක PSM එයා ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගුව පහු බෝටු කරවා
Making headlines this hour, Parliament Speaker concludes an official visit to India and attended the 28th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth held in New Delhi. MWSC is set to begin installing two massive 13,000-ton water storage tanks in Mali this month, significantly increasing the city's water storage capacity. And NSPAR reports disbursements totaling $485,000 in December to fund therapeutic treatments for persons with disabilities, reflecting the government's continued commitment to social welfare.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Abdul Sattar. Now the news in detail. Speaker of Parliament Abdur Rahim Abdullah concludes an official visit to India and attended the 28th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth CSPOC held in New Delhi.
The Speaker was accompanied by Huludu Member of Parliament MP Muhammad Shaheen, the Parliament Chief Bureau Ahmad Nihan Hussain Manik, and Senior Foreign Relations Officer Aishat Iman. According to the Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth, or CSPOC, the conference focused on several key topics: the use of artificial intelligence or AI and social media for parliamentarians, enhancing public understanding of Parliament and citizen participation, and the security, health and well-being of MPs and Parliament staff. During the sidelines of the conference, Speaker Abdul Rahim paid a courtesy call on the Speaker of India's Lok Sabha, Shri Om Birla. The meeting reaffirmed the close and evolving partnership between Male and New Delhi, rooted in mutual respect, sustained dialogue and a common commitment to parliamentary democracy. The Speaker also notably met with Milton Dick MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives of Australia, similarly at the sidelines of the CSPOC conference.
The Maldives Water and Sewerage Company MWSC is set to begin installing two massive 13,000-ton water storage tanks in Mali this month, significantly increasing the city's water storage capacity.
MWSC Managing Director Abdul Mateen Muhammad announced the project during an interview on PSM News Rajamir the program, stating that the new tanks, each weighing 13,000 tons, will collectively add 26,000 tons of storage, doubling the city's current capacity. The project, though essential, has faced significant challenges, including land scarcity and safety concerns. The chosen site, a former garbage dump, required extensive redesigns to meet safety standards, causing delays. Mateen emphasized the high-quality U.S. manufactured materials are being used to ensure durability and minimize service disruptions. This initiative follows MWSC's recent installation of a 10,000-ton tank in Hulmale, the largest in the Maldives, which raised the city's storage to 22,600 tons. The new tanks mark a major step in addressing Male's growing water demands and ensuring long-term supply resilience.
The National Social Protection Agency and SPA reports disbursements totaling $485,122.90 in December to fund therapeutic treatments for persons with disabilities, reflecting the government's continued commitment to social welfare. According to agency data, 159 male and 72 females, totaling 231 individuals, benefited from the welfare. The vast majority was represented with beneficiaries under the age of 18, which totaled 221 individuals. This includes 156 male and 65 females. 10 individuals between the ages of 18 and 64 also received a benefit from NSPA's welfare initiative. Occupational therapy represented the largest share of expenditure, amounting to $143,302.72. The administration's commitment to mental health is further underscored by President Dr. Muiz's plan to invest significantly in improving and expanding psychiatry and speech therapy services across the country. The government has further planned a national program to train 250 therapists. The Ministry of Construction, Housing and Infrastructure officially opens applications for the first housing scheme under the incumbent government's ambitious Housing for All policy, marking a significant step in addressing the nation's housing shortage.
Announced last November, the scheme will allocate a total of 15,000 plots of land and 7,900 flats, with the application process being conducted entirely online through the government's dedicated housing portal. Prospective applicants are urged to note the critical deadlines. Submissions for land plots must be completed by 4th March, while the deadline for flat applications is 17 April. The comprehensive regulations, eligibility criteria, and marking system for the allocations have been published by the ministry to ensure a transparent process. The allocations are designed to cater to a broad cross-section of society. In the Greater Male area and Ras Male, 15,000 plots will be distributed, with 10,000 reserved for residents of Male, 3,000 for non-residents, and 500 designated for predeceased heirs. A further 1,500 plots are allocated for those relocating from the city's narrow lanes. For flats, 4,000 units in the Male area are designated for city residents, 1,500 for individuals from other islands, and 2,400 for special priority categories, which this year include taxi drivers and workers in the fishing and tourism industries. A key feature allows previous recipients of 1 or 2 bedroom flats to apply for 3-bedroom units based on specific conditions related to family size. A primary requirement for city applicants is proof of residence in Male for a continuous 15-year period up to 14 January 2026, with documentation required for any interruptions due to special circumstances. The allocation will prioritize an applicant's income and current living conditions. At a launch event, the Minister of Construction, Housing and Infrastructure, Dr. Abdullah Muttalib, insisted that this administration is committed to fulfilling its promises where predecessors have not. The Housing for All scheme is supported by major land reclamation projects, including developments in Hormale, the massive Ras Male project, and the Gorifal and Giravar Faro initiatives, which together are creating over 1,600 hectares of new land to meet the nation's current and future housing needs.
The Maldivian government takes a significant step towards strengthening healthcare delivery across the archipelago, with the Ministry of Health handing over ambulances to 56 islands nationwide.
The handover took place at a special ceremony led by the Minister of Health, Abdullah Nazim, who said the initiative reflects a broader government commitment to building a more comprehensive and sustainable health system. Addressing the gathering, Minister Nazim said President Dr. Mohamed Muiz, during his extensive community outreach visits, had listened directly to island residents and documented the specific challenges faced by each community. He said the provision of ambulances was a direct response to concerns reputedly raised about emergency medical transport. The minister acknowledged the structural difficulties of delivering healthcare in a country made up of widely dispersed islands. He said even islands that previously had ambulances often faced prolonged service disruptions due to maintenance constraints, leaving communities without reliable emergency transport. Under a directive from the president, these gaps were mapped and prioritized, leading to the current rollout. Through a contractor-financed agreement with Maldives Ports Limited (MPL), 56 ambulances have now been distributed to islands across the country. Minister Nazim described the move as a clear indication of the priority the administration places on equitable access to healthcare. Looking ahead, he said further efforts would focus on cities where demand for emergency services continues to grow. Emphasizing the project's integrated and sustainable design, the minister said MPL has also been mandated to carry out all maintenance work for the ambulances, addressing one of the long-standing weaknesses in emergency health services. The project, valued at $4.22 million, was awarded to MPL last year under a contractor financing model, with the vehicles delivered to the Maldives in 3 separate tranches. The government's plans extends beyond the current scope. Minister Nazim confirmed that an additional 31 ambulances for islands, along with 10 paramedic ambulances for the Greater Mali region, are scheduled to be brought into service later this year, further expanding the country's emergency response capacity.
National Social Protection Agency and SPA reveals that over $3.49 million was disbursed in medical aid in December 2025. And SPA provided vital aid to individuals for medicals in December 2025. In this regard, the agency provided $2.26 million to individuals for medical within the country and $1.22 million for overseas treatment. Breaking down this figure, and SPA has provided 473 people with assistance for treatment at local private hospitals, ADK Hospital and Treetop Hospital. $429,495.47 was provided for individuals that received treatment at these hospitals. Furthermore, SPA has provided $194,049.16 for the procurement of assistive devices. The Elections Commission of the Maldives ECM announces that foreign observers and monitors are welcome to observe the upcoming local council and Women's Development Committee elections scheduled for 4th April.
Applications for international observation will be accepted from the 18th of January to the 18th of February and are open to international organizations, foreign institutions, and individuals. Observers must be at least 18 years old and are strictly prohibited from campaigning for any candidate or political party. This move continues the Commission's long-standing practice of ensuring transparency in major electoral processes. This year's elections will feature significant digital advancements, including online submission of candidate nominations. A total of 626 councillors will be elected across 133 island councils, 3 per island, including a council president and a female member, while 46 islands will elect 5 councillors each, including 2 women. Additionally, city councils will elect 52 members. The Women's Development Committees will mirror the elected membership of local councils in both islands and cities, reinforcing gender representation in local governance.
Indira Gandhi Memorial Hospital IGMH activates operations in its flu clinic. IGMH stated that it has established flu clinic operations for Umrah pilgrims returning to the country, and those that seek the service must first go to the emergency room ER triage. It said once a token is acquired from the QB system, the triage will direct patients towards emergency room or the flu clinic. IGMH further detailed that doctor consultations and phlebotomy services will be available every day from 1000 hours to 2200 hours from room number 10 of the hospital. The current period is common each year for an influx in the number of respiratory illnesses as pilgrims return to the country from Umrah. According to statistics from the Health Protection Agency HPA, the number of dengue fever cases has increased compared to the previous month. It noted in addition to dengue, seasonal flu and influenza cases are also rising. European leaders criticizes US President Donald Trump following his vow to implement a wave of increase in tariffs on European allies until the United States is allowed to buy Greenland, escalating a row over the future of Denmark's vast Arctic island.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said additional 10% import tariffs would take effect on the 1st of February on goods from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Finland, and Great Britain, all already subject to tariffs imposed by Trump. Those tariffs would increase to 25% on June 1st and would continue until a deal was reached for the U.S. to purchase Greenland, Trump wrote. The countries named by Trump on Saturday have backed Denmark, warning that the U.S. military seizure of a territory in NATO would collapse the military alliance that Washington leads. European countries and the European Council said they were coordinating on a response to the tariff threat. Officials from Norway, Sweden, France, and Germany reiterated support for Denmark on Saturday and said tariffs would not be part of Greenland discussions. Tariffs undermine prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic and play into the hands of China and Russia, the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said in a post on X on Saturday.
Kurdish civilians arrive in Syria's Hasakah, fleeing a possible escalation in Tabqa between the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces and Syrian government troops.
The Syrian army continued its push into Kurdish-held territory on Saturday, despite U.S. calls to halt its advance in towns in the area in Syria's north. State media said the army took over the northern city of Tabqa and its adjacent dam, as well as the major Freedom Dam, formerly known as the Ba'at, west of the Syrian city of Raqqa. 75-year-old Muhammad Habash said he fled Tabqa out of fear. Syrian Kurdish authorities had not acknowledged their loss of control over those strategic points, and it was unclear if fighting was still ongoing. For days, Syrian troops had amassed around a cluster of villages that lie just west of the winding Euphrates and had called on the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces stationed there to redeploy their forces on the opposite bank of the river. SDF fighters withdrew from the area early on Saturday as a gesture of goodwill, but then accused Syrian troops of violating the agreement by continuing to push further east into towns and oil fields not included in the deal.
Hanoi's streets were lined with flowers and banners as Vietnam's ruling Communist Party prepares to convene its 14th five-yearly Congress, January 19th to 25th, to select its top leader and set key targets until 2030.
Starting Tuesday, about 1,600 delegates representing more than 5 million party members will name around 200 officials to the Central Committee, which then picks the 17 to 19 members of the Politburo, the party's most powerful body, from which the General Secretary is chosen. Shortly after Congress, the Politburo will nominate the President, Prime Minister, and Speaker of Parliament, whose appointments lawmakers must confirm. Vietnam's leadership operates through collective decision-making, ensuring stability in economic and foreign policy since the Doi Moi reforms of the late 1980s, which transformed the war-torn, impoverished nation into one of Asia's fastest-growing economies. Foreign policy has centered on balancing ties with major powers, China, the United States, and Russia, under the so-called bamboo diplomacy. Founded by Ho Chi Minh in 1930, the Communist Party took control of northern Vietnam in 1954 after French colonial rule ended. After the end of the war with the United States and the fall of Saigon in 1975, Vietnam was reunited under the party, which has since ruled unchallenged, allowing no opposition.
Third seed Alexander Zverev drops the first set but came back to beat Canada's Gabriel Diallo 6-7, 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 in early opening day action at the Australian Open.
A finalist last year, the German looked rusty early on, but settled in the second set and soon got his big serve booming, firing down 15 aces to move into the second round. British qualifier Arthur Ferry delivered the first upset in the men's singles bracket when he knocked off number 20 seed Flavio Cobolli in straight sets 7-6, 6-4, and 6-1. It's just Ferry's third tour-level win, but two of them have come in Grand Slams. He also pulled a first-round upset of Australia's Alexei Popyrin at Wimbledon last June. Ferry, 23, took advantage of some erratic play from Cobolli, who received multiple visits from medical staff and appeared to be dealing with a stomach issue. Cobolli had 8 double faults to Ferry's 0 and had 38 unforced errors, while his opponent had just 25. In other men's action, number 18 seed Francisco Cerundolo of Argentina did not encounter the same day won issues, coasting a 6-3, 7-6, and 6-3 win over China's Zhijian Zhang. Number 32 seed Corentin Moutet, who also took care of business in straight sets, beating Tristan Skulkate, who was competing in his home country, 6-4, 7-6, and 6-3. In the most thrilling match of the early slate on Sunday, Argentina's Tomas Martin Etcheverry outlasted Serbia's Miomir Kecmanovic in a 5-set marathon, 6-2, 3-6, 4-6, 6-3, and 6-4. In the decisive set, Etcheverry finally broke on his 6th breakpoint of an exhausting 20-point game to take a 5-4 lead, serving out the match from there with a love.
In the sugarcane fields of Kano in northern Nigeria, Jamilu Usman is keeping alive a 200-year-old family tradition of producing jaggery, a natural sweetener known locally as Mazak Waila, a small-scale operation that contrasts sharply with the country that imports 96% of its sugar.
Nigeria consumes around 1.5 million metric tons of sugar annually, with the vast majority imported as raw sugar and refined at 3 major industrial refineries, Dangote, BUA, and Golden Sugar. Brazil dominates as the largest supplier, holding over 97% of Nigeria's raw sugar import market share. Yet in Kano, traditional producers like Usman continue an ancient craft passed down through generations. Usman and his workers harvest mature sugarcane stalks after the rainy season, feeding them through mills that extract the juice. The liquid is then boiled for hours in large drums until it thickens into a dark syrup. The hot syrup is poured into steel molds and left to cool and solidify into blocks. Workers then package the jaggery into cartons, each containing 100 pieces ready for sale. The traditional sweetener has become a profitable export commodity. Retailer Al-Qasim Zamba said he buys cartons for 30,000 naira or $19 and exports them to Ghana, Chad, Cameroon, and other countries across the region. For local consumers, jaggery offers an affordable and healthier alternative to refined white sugar. Kano resident Usman Bello uses it to sweeten his tea. While Nigeria's industrial sugar sector relies heavily on imports, spending hundreds of millions of dollars annually, traditional jaggery production represents a local, sustainable alternative that has quietly endured for centuries, providing livelihoods in rural communities while meeting demand for natural sweeteners in West African markets.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead.